So recent health reports are saying that consuming alcohol raises the risk of developing at least 7 types of cancers. President-elect of the Medical Association of Jamaica and Professor of Human Metabolism and Community Medicine at UA Mona, Professor Marvin Reid is with us. Good morning, sir. Welcome to Smile.
Good morning. Happy to be here. Hi, Dada. How are you doing?
All the very best to you and your family for the year, sir.
Thank you.
So I've always read that a little glass of wine a day good for you, and I think they said women must have 2 glasses, man must have 1 glass. Does that, when I say help in the cause of cancers? That even 1 glass, 2 glass?
Right. So one of the things one has to recognize is that the information relating alcohol to diseases, a lot of the work that has been done over the last 30 or 40 years are actually showing that the presumed benefit that we thought that alcohol had on health is perhaps not there.
We thought.
Yeah, we thought, right. So alcohol is implicated in many different types of diseases. Heart diseases, cancers, as a source of the topic this morning, are 2 of the main diseases that alcohol has been implicated or shown to affect our health. And now, previously, when we focused on cardiovascular disease, that is the heart disease and so on, there was a thought that if you're a man and you had the equivalent of what we call 2 drinks for the day, and in the case of a woman, 1 drink per day, that might not be so bad, all right? However, when we look at another condition, which is cancer, we recognize that perhaps the best approach there is no drinks at all. And so it is within that regard where you'll find health societies, international and around the world, are trying to bring this message across to the folks, that's to say, hey, perhaps drinking or consuming alcohol is just not good for you at all.
Okay.
I want to say, well, our producer started by saying defining what is cancer, because there was a time, I was just saying to someone, when you heard the word cancer, it was restricted in our knowledge to prostate, breast, and so on. Now there's cancer of the sinus. It's everywhere. Cancer can be in almost every part of your being, Prof.
Yes, the truth is cancer can affect any parts of the body at all, right? So one of the things we recognize is that cancers generally, the frequency of cancers are increasing. So all of us will have a relative or a friend who has had a cancer. Every day in Jamaica, somebody dies of a cancer. So every single organ in the body can develop or have a form of a cancer. Cancer just basically means that the cells that make up that organ, that particular cell has become autonomous. It's not listening to any of the usual signals, and it is just growing and growing and growing and growing.
Professor, in cigarettes,
yes,
they said nicotine is the problem.
Yes.
Is there a particular ingredient in alcohol that is the problem, or is it just the alcohol itself?
It's really the alcohol itself. So alcohol is a socially accepted product, and so that's part of the problem. But alcohol itself really has no real benefit to man. Alcohol produces really empty calories. So, for example, if you take alcohol, you take on extra calories, and it really don't have much use to you. And so it contributes to obesity. Alcohol actually damages the cells and damages cell DNA, which is the genetic material. So it changes your whole metabolic profile. We know alcohol is a fuel because you put it in our cars.
Go back to the 1 drink, 2 drink.
Yes.
Why was it thought at that time that it was good? When I say good, I mean...
Yeah, I understand what you're saying.
Why was it thought?
Not as harmful.
Right.
So essentially, that came out of what we call epidemiological kind of work, which is work in which you study individuals and you ask them, okay, do you drink? And you rank them, how often they drink, and you look at their health outcomes. And in this particular instance, or in those particular instances, you looked at health outcomes related to heart disease. Did you get a heart attack? Did you get a stroke? Did you have high blood pressure? And what those data showed was that individuals who said that only had 1 or 2 drinks ended up not suffering the heart consequences, not having as many heart attacks or as many heart strokes. So because it was socially accepted, it was said, okay, if you're going to drink, then perhaps this is the upper limit at which you should be drinking at. We now know that when we look at other outcomes, that might not be the case. And part of the problem with the studies generally that showed the benefit was that they didn't take into consideration other health aspect or other lifestyle activity that people may have been experiencing or undergoing. So for example, it was thought that individuals who are heavy drinkers often didn't exercise as much, didn't eat as much because alcohol replaced their food. And therefore, it may be that aspect of it that really contributed and not the amount of alcohol that they consumed. So the field is evolving, and where we are now is that we're saying that perhaps, as I said, the best approach is limit no alcohol. Now, having said that, when you look at the whole cancer spectrum, from a health perspective, what we say is that you have several approaches to address it. So the first approach is try to prevent you from getting the cancers in the first place. The second approach is, okay, let's say we miss that. Can we detect it early? And then the third approach is saying, okay, having had the cancer now, how can we treat it effectively? So from a health perspective, we always approach problems or issues using those three lenses. So in the Jamaican context, we have tried to improve our ability to manage cancers. So, we have improved our health facilities to treat most cancers that there exist, especially the ones that affect us as Jamaicans more. In terms of the detecting early, that's where you hear all of these campaigns about screening. So in the case of breast, you do your mammogram. In the case of your prostate, you do your digital exam. In the case of your colon, you do your colonoscopies and your stool testing. So those are trying to detect early. And where this discussion is really what we call the primary prevention. What are things that we can do to reduce the risk of us getting any cancer at all? And so the message that we're trying to share with the public is that you really need to understand that there is a risk in any amount of alcohol that you actually take.
Yeah. I think one of the things that Dr. Davidson Tamu shared were there were 7 specific ones.
Right.
Is there any reason why those 7? Or we have not yet identified? Sure.
So part of the reason is that often, what are some of the 7? So you have the head and neck cancers, the esophageal cancers, the colon cancers, the prostate cancers, the breast cancers in women. So in the case of breast, it is thought that alcohol, in terms of what we call its metabolism or how it's affecting your metabolism, how things work within your body, it promotes the hormone levels within the body. So the estrogen levels, which are things that are important for women to develop, it increases those concentrations. And therefore, as a result, it makes the woman more likely to get breast cancers. For the head and neck, oftentimes people who drink often smoke. And so alcohol, is a very good solvent. If you stain something and you want to clean it off, you put some alcohol in it and you do it. So alcohol, because you're consuming the alcohol is on your oral, mouth, and the swallowing tube, it means therefore that any other thing that you have that is carcinogenic or can cause cancer, there's an increased risk that will do it.
Sorry to jump in, Professor.
Sure.
Does that mean that there is one of those cancers that is easier to get, for want of a better word, if there's alcohol?
You're right. So the 7 cancers that Daley spoke about and which I just described, yes, those cancers, you're more prone to get those if you drink.
All of the 7?
All of the 7, yeah. Mm-hmm.
But there's not one of those 7 that you are more prone to get?
No, not necessarily, no. So cancers develop within what we call a context. So the context is that as you as an individual, it's what is in your genes.
Yeah.
It's what is your environment. What are the things that you're exposed to at work, at home, and so on. And then what is your lifestyle? How do you conduct yourself? What are your food choices? Do you exercise? These are the sort of things that together increases your individual risk to get a cancer.
Well, you mentioned breast for women. It says colorectal is the most common alcohol-associated cancer among men?
Yes.
Whoa.
Yes.
And final question from me, sir. When you look at the bottles, you say 11% alcohol, 4%, 14%, 40%.
Yes.
Does it matter? or it is alcohol could have 0.5%.
Right, so it could have a 0.5%. So even the ones that are, so it's really the alcohol molecule itself, or the ethanol molecule
So it
itself.
really don't matter.
It doesn't matter,
the percentage.
Right. The percentage does matter, that tells you the amount of volume. And in some cancers, the volume is important. So for example, in those times when we used to say you could drink a small amount more often, we used to say that would be equivalent to 1 beer, for example, a day, or half a glass of wine per day. But we now know that alcohol in of itself can be toxic. And so from the public health side, one of the things that we're trying to do to bring that to everybody's attention is how we label the bottles. So currently, instead of just labeling it in terms of percentages, some health advocates have suggested that we should actually put a warning label on the bottles to say alcohol can cause cancer.
Like
Like
what
they
they
do
have
with
on
the cigarettes.
Like what they do in the cigarette.
Wow.
Kills.
Yeah.
Wow.
I did say final question, but I lied. Sorry.
That's okay. You're George's guy.
Sorry, Professor. And how quickly would this show up in your body? In other words, if I have a drink today and I don't have another drink till next month, am I still at risk, or does it matter?
So yes, it does matter. So it's similar to the scenario with cigarettes. So if you don't consume alcohol at all, you're at your lowest risk.
Right.
If you consume alcohol and then stop, your risk is increased. So it's not as good as people who have never consumed alcohol. And of course, if you continue to drink, clearly that's going to increase your risk and put you at the highest level.
Yeah.
Now, the issue though is that the time relationship between exposure when you have started to when you actually develop disease is actually quite variable. And so that's part of the problem. For many people, it may take 10, 20 years before they actually develop a cancer, because many of these cancers that you have seen and we've reported on occurs in your 40s, in your 50s, and your 60s. And most people would have started drinking from their become legal age. And so we know that the time span is long. So the short answer is that what we're suggesting, certainly from the health sector, is that one needs to be aware that once you're engaged, you're putting yourself at risk in some distant future.
Yep. Thanks for coming, sir.
My pleasure.
Very, very well explained. President-elect, and congrats for that, sir.
Thank you much.
President-elect of the Medical Association of Jamaica and Professor of Human Metabolism and Community Medicine at UA Mona, Professor Marvin Reid.
An ardent old boy.